Good evening and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of the 15th of August. It is 5:30, so we will make a start. Start off with some housekeeping first of all. So we are not expecting a fire alarm, and in the event of an evacuation, you will hear a recorded message requesting you to evacuate the building. Please leave by the nearest exit and the Riviera Centre staff will assist us. Once outside, please assemble in front of the tennis courts to the seaward side of the building. Could I please ask that you ensure that all mobile phones and electronic devices are on silent. I'm going to pass over to the clerk who will tell you how this hybrid meeting will operate.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that we are operating hybrid meeting arrangements with officers and councillors who are not members of the Cabinet having the option to join the meeting via Zoom. We are also live streaming this meeting via the Council's YouTube channel to encourage more people to engage in our public meetings. The proceedings of the meeting will also be recorded. Please can I remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking and turn them off when finished. Please can attendees present in person refrain from watching the live stream or joining the Zoom link, as this will cause interference for our viewers. Anyone attending the meeting remotely must use their raise hand function when they wish to speak and to declare any interest at the appropriate time. If anyone attending the meeting loses connection, the meeting will continue and you will have the option to follow the meeting via the YouTube live stream. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Item 1, apologies, please.
I have none, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes to confirm as the correct record the minutes of the Cabinet from the 11th of July. Do I have a proposer? That's myself. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. All those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Disclosure of interests. If any member has a pecuniary or a non-pecuniary interest, could you please indicate at this particular point? Thank you very much indeed. I can advise that there are no urgent items this evening. So we'll move straight on to item 6, which is the English Riviera Airshow. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, I'd like to say what a great discussion we had at the Overview and Scrutiny meeting the other day, where we had a number of people who presented to the board. And I think it was one of the best meetings I've attended. And it's always good when you get cross-party agreement. And hopefully we will have more of those over the next 4 years. What I would like to see from the Airshow, Mr. Chairman, is a people's airshow. The people of Torbay Airshow. A bit like Teignmouth, where the council has no involvement, and it's community-led. That's what we want to see with the airshow. We can't afford to run it as we have done over the last few years. In fact, from the first year, it's cost the council money from year 1, and last year was probably the worst year, with a shortfall of £190,000. And that's why what we need for this year is a clear business case, a business plan going forward with clear objectives to take it forward not only for this year but for future years, and for the council to take less involvement and for the community to take more. Must also work with the bid company. The bid company spoke at the Overview and Scrutiny meeting and offered their services with better marketing, better sponsorship, and I think better partnership working. I do believe it's an exciting time for the Airshow, and the council, as you can see from the report, have agreed to put in 100,000 and hopefully to get match funding from the items I just put above, the sponsorship and other ways that hopefully the good people of Torbay, especially after last year's successful Airshow, will support it going forward and add to that 100,000 match funding. So you've all seen the report, you've seen the recommendations going forward from the Cabinet, so I don't propose to read them out in full. They're on page 2 and 3. And I think that as soon as we get going making the arrangements, the better. In fact, we need to get off to a flying start, Mr. Chairman. So I propose that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Lewis. I'm happy to second the Airshow report, and we'll talk more in just a moment when we open up for debate. However, I wish to invite Councillor Billings, the Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Board. Maybe you'd be so kind as to come to outline the board's report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Cabinet. As you've just heard, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee heard from a range of representatives representing the business, tourism, community sectors. The meeting resolved, and you've had our report. But I think it's helpful just to touch on the fact that that was not only cross-party, but it was unanimous support, and I think that gives you lots of confidence in the recommendation. The Overview and Scrutiny Board's report outlines the fact that there was support for the principle of an airshow, that there was support for the principle of a 2-day airshow, recognising the variability of the weather. There was enthusiasm for having that as to be more than just an airshow, recognising that there's the opportunity to have events, not just the flying of planes that could create a showpiece event for Torbay, but also a very clear recognition that the financing of that airshow going forwards needs to change, that it's simply not viable for the council to be paying consultants from outside of the bay when we have the skills within Torbay in the voluntary, community and business sectors to assist. And it was that thinking that outlined the recommendation that's in our report, members of the Cabinet. I don't propose to read it out now. You've got it in front of you, and I would simply highlight the unanimous cross-party support that went behind that, and hence the strength of the resolve behind the Overview and Scrutiny Board in passing you our recommendations. So thank you, Chair. Unless there's any other questions, you've had our report. I would leave it at that.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Billings. Very much appreciated. We are going to respond to those recommendations in just a moment. Can I just check with Ms Tuck if there's anything that you'd like to add from our officer?
There's nothing in addition that I would like to add, but I thank members for their consideration of the Airshow and for taking part in a really effective debate at Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you. I'm going to pass back to Councillor Lewis, who will give the Cabinet's response to the Overview and Scrutiny's recommendations, and then I will happily open up for debate at that point.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you to the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny. There are 5 items that you've put there. We've put our response in the report. We fully support all 5 of those recommendations, and that's why we are going ahead with the Airshow. And I must emphasise that it is going to be for 2 days, and it is going to be a free event. I think there was media coverage saying that we would be charging for it, and it may not be for 2 days. At the moment, our plan is, and it will be shown in the business plan, is to have a 2-day event with other things, not only an air show, but make it a family day out, 2 days out, a family event for everyone of the bay, and it will be free. So thank you to Overview and Scrutiny for those recommendations, and I think it is unusual to take all 5, but we are, with no amendments, taking all those 5 recommendations going forward. So thank you for all the hard work you've done, and of course for the officers in compiling the report going forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you indeed. Happy to open up now for debate from Cabinet members. Any debate at all around the table? Thank you. Councillor Bye.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to say, first of all, I am a convert to the air show, having some reservations in the very first air show that took place and the cost and the energy that went into it. walking along from Meadfoot, Daddy Hole, all along our coastline to Churston, Gampton Commons, and seeing the thousands, tens of thousands of people watching the air show, bringing all generations together. That was something like the second or third air show, and walking all along the coastline and seeing huge, huge crowds. I see our air show as an investment in happiness, and it brings all generations together in a way that it's very hard to imagine another event, and certainly nothing on that scale has ever been attempted during my term as a councillor. So I'm a huge, huge supporter. If you look at the report, and I have to say there were some criticisms of the report that went to overview and scrutiny. I thought it was the most amazingly comprehensive report, and the officers who are the authors of the report should be congratulated, and all the research. And the thing that didn't come out in the overview and scrutiny meeting, although it was a splendid meeting, was that the age profile of those people, by and large, who attended. So they were all younger, well, not all, but the majority of those who participated were below 34 years of age. There was the little pie chart, and there's an extraordinary thing to think that not the great majority, but the clear majority of those who attended, observed and enjoyed the air show were younger people. And I think it goes absolutely to the heart of what sort of place Torbay should be. I believe it should be a vibrant place for all generations, bringing people together, and I think the air show absolutely is something that we want to support. The final point to make, and it is relevant to an item that's coming up later in the discussions this evening, is the recruitment of foster carers. It's interesting that in our fostering report, the most successful recruitment of new foster carers has been from events at which families participate, and there's a list of about 10 or 12 events that we go along to recruit potential foster carers. Interestingly, so far, we haven't done that at the air show, as far as I could see. We've been to the Mild and Apple Pie show, and all the others are listed in the report that you'll read later, but we haven't been to the air show. So, that is a potential, I think, again, because there was I think Councillor Darling raised the issue of how we could involve our cared for children and care experienced young people. But looking at the other way round, it seems to me that if family events are where we can push for recruitment for foster carers and foster families to come forward, I think there's huge potential to do that at the next air show. So I'll be there. And this investment for happiness, recruiting foster carers, and looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Any more comments from around the Cabinet table? Okay, just from myself, I would like to put on record, because I think everybody who tunes in via YouTube, just imagine that all the time the councillors are, drawn lines on one side of the table and on the other, and forever bickering. Well, this is a perfect example of actually all councillors coming together through that overview and scrutiny process and working productively and actually coming up with a series of recommendations, 5 recommendations that they have brought to the Cabinet, and the Cabinet have actually accepted each and every one of those overview and scrutiny recommendations, which basically means the whole council, the whole 36 councillors, are effectively all on the same page, which is a remarkable achievement. So well done to all the councillors for getting on board and behind, and actually just putting their politics on one side and getting involved. So absolutely fantastic. So before I move to the vote, I'll open up the debate wider. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing I wanted to say was there's been reference to 5 recommendations, but there appear to be 6 in the pack, so it would be useful to know which one you're not agreeing to. But the main things I wanted to say was that I would like to except that we'd like to welcome all the recommendations of the Overview and Scrutiny report, and like to thank the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny for conducting the meeting last week in a collegiate, cross-party way, which makes a change under this administration. Particularly like to welcome the recommendation concerning the social benefits of the Airshow, which was missing from the original report, because without measuring the social benefits of the Airshow, there was a real concern that decisions would be made without having the whole picture of all the benefits that the Airshow brought or brings to Torbay. And I'm going to disappoint Councillor By even further by saying it did feel that the original report to Overview and Scrutiny was rushed. Not only was the social benefit not measured, but the voice of the resident was missing, which, given that I understand that the voice of the resident was going to be at the heart of everything this administration does, is concerning. As an avid viewer of Torbay Council's meetings on YouTube, the algorithm flagged up to me a full council meeting from the 5th of December 2013. During a debate on the Port Master Plan for Torbay Harbour, it was interesting to see that Councillor Lewis argued that Torbay should be seen as a key resort in Devon and maybe even the whole country. And he went on to say that Torbay was an area of excellent and a leading light as a seaside report. I was pleased to hear that because it sounded like Councillor Lewis was arguing in 2013 that Torbay should have the ambition to be the UK's premier resort. And it's disappointing, given that Councillor Lewis supports that it was only the Torbay being a premier resort was only mentioned once in the Overview and Scrutiny report, whilst the word reduce in relation to the Airshow was mentioned over 20 times. The words premier result also don't appear in the Cabinet response to Overview and Scrutiny, and it would be useful to have confirmed when we eventually hear the Council's vision under the new administration whether you think that Torbay should be the UK's premier resort. There was also a lot of concern in the lead-up to the debate at Overview and Scrutiny, which I think about whether we were going to cancel it or reduce it, etc. And that may have been where the concern about a free event or a one-day event came from. And I think that was a result of a combination of the rushed, incomplete report, lack of engagement with residents, which led to lots of unnecessary concern. So that's all from me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Darling. Your microphone is not on, sir.
Thank you. Right, I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas of concern for me and echo a slight element of what Councillor Long was alluding to was the uncertainty that we had leading up to this event. And it was disappointing that actually at the Airshow that the leader of the council did put a big question mark that was echoed on regional television over the future of the show. We knew at that time that the TDA and the Business Improvement District have both commissioned a study into the impact assessment of the show so that we could have confidence of whether it was money well spent or not. And so it was disappointing that that big question mark was raised there. And also the limited options that were shared on the initial report that was going to Overview and Scrutiny that did put a big question mark over whether it's going to be a two-day event and whether that was shroud waving by the administration who were then going to, after not putting that question mark, but was actually going to save something that perhaps they never really wanted to kill. I don't know, but I know that in residents in Preston of that week, a number of them were saying to me when we were knocking on doors that they were concerned that it was foolish of the local authority to go for an only one-day event. So that was the impression left. The other area, that will be water under the bridge one way or the other. But it is a lot happier local authority and community to have a firmer hand on the tiller. Another area that did come out during debate at overview and scrutiny was in respect of our care experienced youngsters and our youngsters in care, where the previous administration made sure that as part of these proposals that we weaved our support into those foster families as part of this process. I'm disappointed that although it was mentioned at overview and scrutiny, that has not been weaved into recommendations. And if we are serious about becoming an outstanding local authority for our youngsters, then we need to make sure that we have young people at the forefront of our minds when we are developing these big signature opportunities for Torbay. It doesn't happen by accident, and unless you plan for this, it is seen as a missed opportunity. So I would ask Cabinet, as you do progress this opportunity, that you try to weave that into these proposals. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. It is very difficult these days to quite understand where Councillor Darling and Councillor Long are going to actually be, because we just heard a few moments ago that at the Overview and Scrutiny Board they voted, and I believe it was Councillor Billings did inform us it was a unanimous vote. Unanimous generally means, in the dictionary when I looked it up, that everybody actually was in favour of that recommendation. And you come to the Cabinet this evening and you see that maybe that's not quite how it was portrayed, which is somewhat sad. But we have seen say one thing at this meeting and then say something else at another meeting. But we have to accept that that is the current position. I did say when we had the Airshow that my heart said one thing and my head said something else. The reality is the council is not in a position to continue in the current state as what we were this year. We went through all of those figures through overview and scrutiny, and overview and scrutiny have come back with the recommendations. It does require a different approach. It does require a different contribution from this council. And item 4, we talk about that the Torbay Council contributes a maximum of £100,000 towards the English Riviera Airshow as match funding to contributions from public donations and sponsorship. Because the reality is, without that public donation, without that sponsorship approach, £100,000 will not deliver the kind of 2-day air show that we are looking to put on. Therefore, we do need huge help from our community. There will be opportunities from a sponsorship point of view. There will be opportunities from a public donation point of view. There will be huge opportunities for volunteers. So it'll be run very, very differently. So I stand by what I said at the air show, and I think tonight brings us forward to a very different place than we were, but as important, a commitment to deliver that air show for 2024. I'm going to hold it there. I'm going to pass back to Councillor Lewis just to answer some of the other odd questions that were left out.
Thank you, Chairman. I wouldn't call them odd questions, but Councillor Long, I think the report is a factual report, certainly not a rush report. It was a factual report. The reason for the shortness, time-wise, is, of course, we were waiting for the surveys to come back, and once they were back, then, of course, we could write the report. Very good of you doing research. I don't know what other findings you found. 2013 that I was talking about, really boosting up the tourism in the Bay. Why wouldn't I? And I stand by that. Yep, we all want Torbay to be a premier resort. We're all in agreement on that, and hopefully cross-party we will fight to be able to do that. As far as Councillor Darling is concerned, saying that the leader of the council was negative after the air show, shall I tell you, Councillor Darling, why we were negative? Because we were shocked that on your watch, this air show cost 190,000. That's why we were shocked. And that's why we had to look at it and get the surveys back and find a different way of doing it. Look at Teignmouth to see how they worked. Not a penny of council money goes into it. And that's what we're doing. We're actually trying to get the community behind us. As I said, to have a people's air show where the residents are behind it, where they're backing part of the community, where businesses come forward and say, yeah, we want an air show, we're going to sponsor it. And where the visitors come, what Councillor Bai said, you know, put a smile on their faces. That's what we're going to do, but we're not going to do it costing 190,000 a year. As for youngsters and foster parents, I agree. I was the portfolio holder for Children's Services for 2 years, and I feel how important that is. And of course, when we do the business plan, when we come to the arrangements for the air show, they will be included and be a big part of the air show going forward. As I said, all the way through the comments at overview and scrutiny and here, it's going to be a people's air show with the community, which includes all of us in Torbay and all the good visitors that come to Torbay. So I hope going forward we have full political support for this air show. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. So move to the vote that the Cabinet's response to the English Riviera Air Show Spotlight Review report of the Overview and Scrutiny Board be approved as published. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Move on to item 7, Corporate Parenting Strategy, 22 to 25. Councillor Bai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very proud to be the lead member for Children's Services presenting this report to Cabinet. Our role as corporate parents has been acknowledged and praised by Ofsted in the report that they published in 2020, which gave us the overall good status for Children's Services. And we have worked very effectively together on corporate parenting. So I'm very, very pleased to bring this to the Cabinet. And of course, in the new arrangements we have, it will go to the council meeting, our next council meeting, because it is something that we want all members to be signed up to, not just those who are on the Corporate Parenting Board, absolutely, not just the lead member, but we want all councillors to be involved and partners and officers right the way through this organisation and our partner organisations. So please, well done to those who have prepared and refined this. The original refresh, which was significantly more than a refresh, 2 or 3 years ago, the author was our chief executive, and we started then using a completely different style of language. And I think that the corporate parenting strategy of 2 or 3 years ago, that was judged an interim strategy, nonetheless a huge, huge step forward compared to what we had before. Talked about our love for those children who are within our care. I think the big step forward with this new corporate parenting strategy is that we throughout hear the voice of the child. So I think it is extremely well written, and all the way through you'll have examples of young people in our care giving their impression of what it is like and what they like and what they don't like and what we could do better. Our corporate parenting board has been re-established since the election, the change in administration. Very, very pleased indeed with the meeting that we had in July. We are all now taking on, as we did before, the lead strands for the priorities that are identified in this report, but we do now have absolutely first-class representation from a care experienced young person, Amber, who's taken things to a whole new level with the writing of a report by a care experienced young person giving her their views as to what it is like to go into care, to be in the care system. And I think we're taking that to a new high level. So let's look through the report. It is all about listening to the voice of the cared for child, those who are care experienced. The 5 priorities are listed. It's all about working with young people in care. It's all about placement. It's all about achieving full potential for young people in the care system, their health, including their emotional health, and then development and transition into adulthood. So I hope very much that members of the Cabinet, and more widely those who are here this afternoon who aren't in the Cabinet, will support this as it goes through Cabinet to the full Council, because it becomes a strategic policy framework. It goes to that higher level so that we get the buy-in from all members. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I very much hope that it will get support this afternoon from Cabinet members.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bye. This is being seconded by Councillor Tyerman.
I'm happy to second this.
Thank you very much indeed. Open up for debate around the table. Any debate around the table at this particular point? Happy to open up to wider debate. I'll come back to you in just a moment, Councillor Tyerman. Councillor Darling.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to come and speak on this item. I would like to broadly welcome the continued positive direction of travel of this report. It was a really important change in approach that we had when Anne-Marie rewrote a report and made sure that we used the words love, because our cared for children, our care experienced children, we should see them as our own children, both as elected members and as senior officers of the local authority. And that's why I'm disappointed in the previous report that there was no mention of how we were going to do that there, because they must always be in the upper part of our minds. I do have misgivings. I have misgivings that the lead member suggests that we got the positive Ofsted judgment in 2020 when it was actually 2022. I have misgivings that we've got members listed as corporate parents, people who should care, and yet they didn't attend haven't attended a single corporate parenting meeting. And my real concern is, when you look through this report and you hear the voice of the child, the clear demand from our children is helping them with accessing affordable housing. And yet, this administration appears to be turning its back on the need for affordable housing in Torbay, so therefore letting down our care experienced youngsters massively. Councillor Bye, can you please give me some assurances around how you are progressing this? Because I saw an email at the weekend where you were questioning whether you're responsible as a corporate parent for affordable housing or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. We'll talk about affordable housing when that's on the agenda. We're dealing with the corporate parenting strategy this evening. Any more questions from outside of the Cabinet? Councillor Tyerman, you indicated previously.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to say that I was very pleased in reading this, having had 4 years away from the Council, to see how fundamentally different it came across in feel than documents I was looking at in my previous time here. And I think that's a really good step forward. But I see it mirrored as well in a number of other aspects going along with the work that's being done across children's services to do with SEND, etc. I see this new attitude coming through. And I can say that, across the whole bit of the care of our young people, both those in care and other children, that we need to do a lot. As a school governor, I'm very aware how much the pandemic has affected many of them and disrupted their lives. And I think this is something that all of us need to give more and more attention to. So I hope we're not going to be complacent. I hope we'll carry on pushing this out everywhere. I'm sure we will. The direction feels to me like it's there to do so. So I welcome this, and I welcome a lot of the initiatives going on at the moment. It's great to see.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. Councillor Bye, anything to sum up before I go to the vote?
Indeed, and thank you for Councillor Darling for raising one or two issues. I did intend to read out the foreword or a part of the foreword. I want to do that now. So this is the foreword and our vision for the sort of place we want Torbay to be and where our cared for children fit into that vision. Central to this vision is making sure that everyone can play their part in supporting Torbay's children, making Torbay child-friendly. We are so proud of our children. We are committed to do all we can to support them to benefit from the many opportunities that the Bay has to offer. In all we do, we want our children to feel loved, supported and safe. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our incredibly dedicated foster carers and staff for the commitment they demonstrate to our children every single day. We are committed to being great corporate parents to ensure that our children have every opportunity to live happy and fulfilling lives. There are then the 5 councillors who are on the corporate parenting board. It was unfortunate that only 3 of those 5, from memory, attended the first meeting of the corporate parenting board in July. And what I have asked is if members can't come along in the future, that they can send a named substitute. And I would be more than happy, as we did do in the past, to encourage substitute members on the corporate parenting board, but also on the overview and scrutiny sub-board, which I used to chair. You know, it takes a little chutzpah, and I hope I've got this right, that Councillor Darling raised the issue of attendance at the last meeting. Councillor Darling, you were not at the last meeting. And if I wasn't at a meeting, you gave your apologies, and I appreciate you gave your apologies, but if I wasn't at a meeting, I wouldn't be having a go at another meeting that other people weren't at the meeting I wasn't at. And I have spoken to the other member, and it's who wasn't at the meeting, and it's absolutely in the diary to attend the next one, and she has taken on with enthusiasm and has a particular interest in the strand lead that she has been given. So please, 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 let's all work together for children and not score those points. I struggle with all this, as you know, modern technology and notes that the director has provided me. The other thing that you prompted me, absolutely, we have got to make progress on housing, and we particularly must make progress on housing for care experienced young people. We've got to improve that transition, not just in housing, but to make sure that those who are not in education, employment and training is lower than it is now. You know, at the moment that there are issues there. We've got to do better for that. Housing. Therefore, I am very pleased to say in this strategy, and if I had better handwriting, I'll be able to read my own notes, we did incorporate the recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Board that met in January, a long time ago now, and incorporate it into this strategy. In fact, I don't think it was that Overview and Scrutiny Board. I think it was the Overview and Scrutiny that was looking at the housing crisis. We incorporated the recommendations of the housing crisis, and we incorporated those recommendations which relate to care leavers and care experienced young people. They are there. But it's not just about a strategy, it's about delivery. And professional colleagues, as well as elected colleagues, know that I'm absolutely passionate that we make progress on the delivery of housing for care experienced young people. I don't think there's hardly been a meeting in the town hall where I haven't banged that particular drum. You know, with all due respect, not much progress was made on that in the last few years, and if we don't make more progress on that in the next few years, we are not going to hang on to our good rating for children's services at Ofsted. It's absolutely crucial that young people, as they leave the care system, have opportunities to live good independent lives and to have housing that is appropriate to their needs and with support. So that is there. It's absolutely here incorporated in this new corporate parenting strategy. So, Mr. Chairman, with all that, I very much hope that members will support this corporate parenting strategy.
Thank you very much indeed. So we will move to the vote, and it is that the corporate parenting strategy 2022 to 2025 be approved. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair, but just to clarify, that's recommending to Council that it be approved.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. We move on to item 8, which is the Fostering Annual Report 22-23. Councillor Bye.
On this, I have notes of my own, Mr. Chairman, but I also have some notes prepared by our Director of Children's Services, and there'll be no prizes for guessing which is rather more coherent and which is rather more elegant. This is a statutory requirement that we prepare an annual report. So it is the annual report for approval for 2022-2023. And it has to be approved by the Cabinet before publication. So that is the progress that we're involved in this afternoon. It is approval prior to its publication. And I have to say, despite the little skirmish just now, I do again want to praise the previous administration, absolutely, in delivering more support, in particular, and more recognition of the work of our foster carers. I think, well done, praise where praise is due, to engage with our foster carers and our foster families as you have done, and that absolutely is ongoing. I love the slogan that we've adopted of "We Are Family," if you've read the report, with a little acknowledgement there to Sister Sledge. We are highlighting the key priorities and actions of 2022-2023, and we are highlighting key priorities and actions for the next period on page 26. I guess what is most crucial for a report on fostering is the recruitment and retention of our foster carers. And so this, I'm sorry to say, is a mixed picture. And I do want to read out the notes that I've been provided so that all members are aware of the challenges that we face. So for our cared for children, it is really important that they are able, if at all possible, to live in Torbay and as close as possible to their communities and schools. Nationally, we are seeing falling numbers of fostering families, so this is not a dissimilar position to what we have in Torbay. In Torbay last year, although we had higher numbers of inquiries than previous years, 111 compared to 99 the previous year, there were only 8 approvals, therefore a 7% conversion rate. And there are many reasons for this. We know that the impact of the cost of living crisis is significantly impacting on families. So adult children returning to live in the home, and therefore families who have made inquiries are withdrawing from the process. Financial consideration and needing financial security for families. The cost of living crisis continues to impact on families and influence their position on whether now is the right time for them to foster. Fostering families have concern and anxiety about the stable homes built on love strategy and consultation and the regional care cooperative model, and some initial concern raised by fostering families of the loss of the bespoke and individualised approach to fostering support that the Torbay Fostering Service is able to offer families. So there is concern as things change, as government is introducing changes to the fostering service. Actually, that is going to be based on more of a regional model compared to the local model that we have now, and there are question marks about relationships going forward, so we've really got to mitigate that. And we also have fewer approvals of Form Fs, which are the documents required to assess our mainstream carers, and more connected kinship carer assessments occurring. So our financial strategy to secure sufficiency of placements requires the fostering service to aim to increase the net number of fostering households by a minimum of 10 per year. As of the 31st of March 2022, Torbay supported 81 mainstream fostering families. As of the 31st of March 2023, Torbay supported 84 mainstream fostering families. So a step forward, but only a very modest step forward. In 2022-23, 8 mainstream fostering families were approved and 5 mainstream fostering families were deregistered, resulting in a net increase of 3, thereby 7 mainstream fostering families short of Torbay's target. However, it is important to note that the percentage of children who left care as a result of a special guardianship order being made, which was 14% of all children who left care in 2022-2023, higher than the England average. So that is something that's very positive for children as it secures stability and legal permanency. Unfortunately, 15 applicants also progressed from the point of initial inquiry to the stage whereby they were allocated a social worker and the Form F assessment had begun. However, they subsequently withdrew from assessment for the reasons already stated. Positively, throughout 2022-2023 financial year, there have been no cases through the independent review mechanism process. So from April 2022 to March 2023, 14 fostering families were deregistered for the reasons as outlined below, of which 5 were mainstream fostering families. 3 fostering to adopt fostering arrangements ended as the placement converted into an adoptive placement. So that's very positive indeed. 8 deregistrations were initiated by the fostering family for a variety of personal reasons, including the choice to become special guardians to the children they care for. Again, that's good news. And 3 deregistrations were initiated by the fostering service. 1 fostering family then became a connected carer for Devon, 1 became an enabler supporting children with disabilities, and 1 chose to offer staying put to their previously fostered child before retiring. So I think all members should embrace with enthusiasm the foster carer recruitment programme. As I've indicated earlier when we talk about the Airshow, there are a number of events that colleagues go along to recruit. It seems a remarkably inconsistent sort of picture. Some years we have really good recruitment and conversions, and then the recent year, although a very significant number of expressions of interest received, unfortunately a lower percentage going on to sign up and to become foster carers. But I commend this report for approval by the Cabinet. I'll be very pleased to take any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bye. And second, Councillor Lewis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Very pleased to second this report. It is disappointing that out of 111, we only got 8 approvals, but I'm sure that's nothing to do with our staff. Our staff do a wonderful job in trying to recruit. I've spoken to many of them at the events going around at the Airshow and other events, not the Airshow, the military. They were there and had a long chat with them. Hopefully this will improve, and I'm sure it will, and I'm sure that they're on the case. But I think all of us have a high regard for any of the parents who come forward to foster children, and giving a home to someone from Torbay. So I welcome this report and give it my full support, and thanks to all the hard-working staff in the fostering team. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Any comments, debate, questions from within the Cabinet? I think at this point I'd just like to put our thanks on record for all of the various events and organisations that have worked with us over the last years. They are listed in the paper at page 20. Lots of events there that we instantly recognise names of, and I know Annette does a fantastic job there in badgering and getting support and endorsement of that. So just really worth mentioning that, and that ongoing support for those events is very much welcome. Okay, let's move outside of the Cabinet. Any questions, debate? Councillor Long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And this is mainly for perhaps people watching on YouTube, but there's been lots of reference to fostering families and looking to recruit people to become foster carers at family events. Of course, families can be made up of lots of different types, shapes and sizes. I, for example, have got a mother and a father and a stepmother and a stepfather, so 4 sets of parents and step-parents, but people who are single can also be foster parents or foster carers, and also from the LGBTQ plus community can also be foster carers. So foster carers or foster parents, so I very much hope that we'll be trying to recruit at what some people might not view as family events, but for example, at the Torbay Pride on the 2nd of September, I very much hope there'll be recruitment there. If not, I'm going, so I'm happy to take some flyers with me if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Darling.
Thank you. And I'd like to declare my family. I have 10 siblings and 2 moms and 2 dads because I'm actually adopted. And so fostering is something very close to my heart. And my personal reflection is that you build it by those personal relationships. It is all about that. And whilst this report does give us good heart, it's also really important that we reach out to our faith community. And I would really welcome thank the work that Home for Good have done for us in actually making sure that we've hugged close our faith community, which has borne fruit with that support of foster families coming forward, but also that inbuilt support that you often get from churches and those communities to those who've stepped up and taken on supporting those youngsters. The areas I just wanted to explore, as Councillor Long alluded to, Councillor By, can we have some assurance that at the Pride event on the 2nd of September there will be some opportunities to reach out to those from that community to consider fostering, and we should. The reality is the reason why we're getting difficulty getting foster families over the line at the end is because of the cost of living crisis. And I think we need to reflect long and hard on that. It's not about our staff, it's making sure that we've got the right packages to land people in uncertain times. And it is not about badgering people that colleagues do to support. The reality is there needs to be a culture change in Torbay around making sure that our care experienced youngsters and our cared for youngsters are seen as part of our community, and all parts of our community, not just the council, but all key partners, and all of us need to be playing their part by making sure that people like employers have fostering friendly contracts for their employees. So there are those opportunities of doing that bigger picture, and it isn't about badgering, it's actually about enlightening people and seeing it as opportunities to support. And then the last question I'd like to put to Councillor By is in respect of those regional cooperatives that is coming down from central government and does threaten where we are now. We could be subsumed into a Southwest regional cooperative that we're not able to influence as strongly as we've been able to turn around in the last 4 years with our foster families offer. Councillor By, can you give us some assurance that we've written to the government sharing our concerns about this approach and how our foster families have grave concerns about being subsumed into such a regional body by the Conservative government? Thank you.
Hoping that we could all work together without being unduly party political on children's services. I have expressed my reservation this afternoon, and I'm quite happy to express my reservation further about that. Recruitment and retention of foster carers is built upon good relationships, and well done for all those who've worked towards good relationships between Torbay Council, Children's Services and the foster carers that we have now. I'm told that we have written expressing our reservations. We have to see how this works. I do want to refer back to what is in the report that I made mention of earlier on. And absolutely, the Pride event, that's great. If we go make a presentation there, and we're going to be at more events this next year, hopefully recruiting and spreading the word about becoming a foster carer than the previous year. But what is written in the report, there's two things that I do want to refer to. This identified, there's been a lot of research on the recruitment in recent years, and this identified, for example, that attendance at key community events generated a large proportion of initial inquiries into the fostering service, more so than print media, advertising or social media campaigns, where the latter are integral in raising awareness and promoting the opportunity to foster. Events generated an average 6 initial inquiries per event, with a total of 56 inquiries being received across all 9 events, converting to 27 being qualified leads. And this is in the report, so please, I was just referring to this. Granular analysis has also enabled the identification of key family-friendly events, which led to a higher rate of inquiries and qualified leads. So utilising this level of understanding has enabled ongoing review of the event schedule. So there will be more going out and about to events in the next 12 months, and absolutely I'm told we are going to be at the Pride event. Absolutely everyone can come forward. We are an inclusive council. Absolutely we recruit inclusively for foster carers. The other thing I wanted to say, which I find interesting in the report, analysis has also taken into account the geographical narrative in terms of areas whereby inquiries have been high. In 2022-2023, uptake has been high in Brixham specifically, for example, and we're undertaking targeting marketing strategies in areas where initial inquiries have been lower. But I wonder actually if there's a part of the Bay, and Brixham has a very strong sense of community, and anecdotally a lot of the foster carers who I've met at the various panels and so on have are resident in Brixham. So Brixham is our smallest town, but it's absolutely pulling above its weight in terms of foster caring. It's interesting that there's a culture there. Be interesting perhaps, although we're saying we're undertaking targeted marketing strategies in areas where initial inquiries have been lower, it'd be interesting to go to Brixham and try and get an understanding from our foster carers in Brixham what it is about Brixham. My own feeling is our own foster carers, if we nurture them and we have good relationships, are probably the best advocates and the best way of bringing more people into foster caring. So I've ambled on a bit. I hope I've answered your question, but absolutely more events, learning from what we've done, and we need to do more of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bye. Just to remind the Cabinet members that the vote is to the Fostering Annual Report 22-23 as set out in Appendix 1 to the submitted report be approved to enable it to be published in accordance with Council's requirements. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Move on to item 9, the Licensing Act 2003, the Cumulative Impact Assessment 2024 to 2027. Councillor Chanter.
Thank you, Chair. I was interested to see if you got the word cumulative right. For ease during this, I may use CIA, which is Cumulative Impact Assessment. So I'd like to talk to you about the Cumulative Impact Assessment consultation. As outlined in the report under the Licensing Act of 2003, a licensing authority may publish a cumulative impact assessment. The current CIA was last reviewed in 2020 and was effective from the 7th of January 21. Section 5A of the Licensing Act 2003 requires the CIA assessment to be reviewed every 3 years to consider whether it remains of that opinion. If the local authority remains of that opinion, then it must revise the CIA so that it A, includes a statement to that effect, and B, sets out the evidence as to why the authority remains of that opinion. A cumulative impact means the potential impact that a significant number of licensed premises in one area can have based on the following 4 licensing objectives: prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, protection of children from harm. There are currently 2 designated cumulative impact areas in Torquay, the Strand and Castle Circus. It is proposed that the CIA continues to cover the above-mentioned areas. The police's report in Appendix A of the draft CIA assessment 2024-2027 details the evidence as to why the 2 areas should remain. Appendix B of the CIA shows the number of noise and odour complaints within each CIA during 2017 to 2022. This shows the effect of the concentrated number of premises on the local residents by way of public nuisance. For example, noise or odour from the premises and from residents shouting in the street. A number of these complaints cannot be associated with one particular premises and is caused by the effect of a number of premises and the number of customers frequenting the areas at particular times of the day and night. It is intended that the public consultation on the CIA will be open for 6 weeks. The consultation process will provide all stakeholders, interested parties and the public the opportunity to have their say on the content of the draft. Following feedback from the consultation, the final version of the CIA will then go before the Council for approval. We therefore request that members consider the report and approve the draft cumulative impact assessment to be published and allow for a 6-week consultation to commence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This one is being seconded by Councillor Lewis.
Very happy to second, and I see from the documents that the police are supportive as well, which is the important thing. It's about teamwork, working together to make sure that people are safe in our town centre. So very happy to second.
Thank you. Questions or debate from around the Cabinet table? Thank you. Any questions or debate from in the wider room? Councillor Long.
I was trying to think of a way of getting the word cumulative into my question, but I couldn't think of anything in time. My question is regarding the sale of single cans or single bottles, etc. Would that be limited under this CIA? Thank you.
We'll provide you with an answer in just a second. Any other questions or any other debate? I'm really pleased that Councillor Tranter took this one, because I'll be referring to it as the CIA as we move forward. Thank you, Councillor Tranter.
From discussions that I've had, that is what we believe, but we can confirm in writing. I'll get that to you tomorrow, but absolutely that was something that was discussed, that the cheap single cans of beer they won't be allowed.
Thank you very much indeed. And just to remind you that this is basically, we are launching a 6-week consultation period. So I would urge Councillor Long to make sure that his comments are actually included in the consultation so that they're actually down there on paper. Thank you. So there's no more debate around the table. So all those in favour of moving out for this to be consultation period, 6 weeks, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Move on to item 10, little pests. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Little pests. This is a fairly straightforward contract award that we're asking for Cabinet approval on. It's perhaps slightly unusual in that the large part of this contract is not set in stone, but is basically setting a contractual framework from which we will pay charges when the service is provided, but only when it's provided. There's a small element, I think in the region of 10% of this contract is for a fixed a fixed element to take place before it starts, or before call-outs come into. It's a straightforward renewal of an existing service that we've had across the council, and which is absolutely important to make sure that our key activities, our key, excuse me, our key places where people might come across pests, which are harbours, and some of our older buildings are kept in the sort of condition we'd like them to be.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Timon. Seconded this evening by Councillor Tranter.
I second that.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the Cabinet? Any questions from anybody in the room? No questions, no debate. Anything further to add, Councillor Timon?
Oh, sorry, just to spell out the proposed decision then, that the pest control contract be awarded to the preferred bidder set out in exempt Appendix 1 to the submitted report.
Thank you very much indeed. And with my job done, happy to move to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Which brings us nicely on to item number 11, which is all about cyber security and the renewal of the 24-hour Cyber Security Operations Centre monitoring contract. Councillor Timon.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that this is the sort of area in which I think most of us don't really understand what's needed and how these sorts of operations take place. But I think we all have come across or have heard of major problems that can be encountered by organisations that come under cyber attack. So this is a contract that basically gives us insurance, and it's like any other insurance. It's one that you hope you've taken out insurance for your house or whatever so that you can get compensation if it burns down, but you pray that it doesn't burn down. And this is the same. We hope we don't get attacks from cyber security, but if it does come about, having a 24-hour monitoring system in place should give us a much, much better chance of protection. I think we all know that it's a constant battle between people who are trying to protect and people who are trying to circumvent that protection. So I think that even when you've got this in place, there is nothing absolutely guaranteed. But as a council, we are looking after an enormous amount of very confidential private information. And it is absolutely our duty to take every bit of care we can on looking after that information. This is not a cheap contract. It's been set out, and it's been procured using the KSC framework, which means that the suppliers within that framework have been pre-vetted and got themselves on a list of people who are capable of providing the service, and those are the only people that have therefore the ability to bid for this type of contract. So we've procured it through that basis, and we are where we are. So the recommendation here is that the preferred bidder sought from the KCS framework be awarded the contract for the 24-hour Cyber Security Operations Centre monitoring services for a 3-year term as set out in Appendix 1.
Thank you, Councillor Timon. And I'm happy to second that from the Chair. 24-hour monitoring is obviously the key to trying to keep this at bay. So we'll open up for any debate from members around the table or from members within the room or indeed the virtual room. I have been looking for hands as well, so we haven't ignored you in the virtual room. No hands this evening, and no hands in the room. So we shall move straight on. Just to remind you that that recommendation is the preferred bidder sought from the KCS framework be awarded the contract for the 24-hour Cyber Security Operations Centre monitoring service for a 3-year term as set out in exempt Appendix 1. All those in favour, please indicate.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And at 18:39, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much indeed. Good evening.